see some incredible pilots, some incredible industry panels.
SeriesFest is the premier place to be.
It's really important in every industry to have community. This is where it begins here at SeriesFest.
I think Hollywood is changing, but not fast enough. We need the gatekeepers to open the door, and SeriesFest, they're blasting the doors open.
All eyes focused on the Mile High City this weekend, an ambitious and exciting new festival called SeriesFest.
An international television pilot festival.
Uniting artists, television executives, and producers to find the next big hit.
Finally, there's an independent avenue for people who want to just go into the TV business.
I'm Gemma Chan. It's such a great idea to have a festival dedicated to TV like this.
First, we're going to kick it off with our third annual Pitch-a-thon.
I love that you have pitch sessions here because that is the one thing they don't teach you in film school, they don't teach you in college, and it turns out to be probably the most important function of creating a show and getting it on the air.
One of the reasons why we're here is to remind the filmmakers that are here that they have an impact, that they make a difference.
I'm going to learn probably more than anybody else. So it's great to be here at SeriesFest.
SeriesFest, what up?
Thank you so much. It says Steve Carell on it, but we can build a marketplace here, a place like SeriesFest, the way that Sundance did in the early 90s with independent film.
I'm excited to be here as an artist performing tonight at the kickoff of SeriesFest.
I'm on the way up. I'm on the way up.
This is the best audience to come out to in the entire world.
Welcome to SeriesFest Season 11, Day 3. How many of you already seen something this morning? Wow. And for those of you just joining us, welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm Randy Kleiner, the co-founder and CEO. First of all, I just want to thank Denver Film, our partner. We are here at the C Film Center. It's their home year-round. From their staff, from their tech staff, to the theater managers, to the house staff out front, they become part of our family for this week, and we couldn't do without them. Thank you, Denver Film. All right, before we kick off with this panel, I also need to thank Universal Television Group. They have been such tremendous partners with us for several years, and this panel is no exception. But it's not just this panel we're doing with them. We have several programs that'll be happening throughout the week, and I'm just gonna call them out here. Right after this, we are going to be showing Netflix's The Four Seasons, and we're gonna be honoring Marco Calvani, one of the stars, with the Breakthrough Actor Award. We'll also have Tracy Wigfield here, one of the co-creators. It's phenomenal. I highly recommend you check that out. We also will be doing a world premiere on Saturday night, Devil in Disguise. We on Sunday are doing, we have the creators of Denis Medical, and we're doing Eclipse and Conversation. And I just think this isn't coincidence. It's because they are doing some of the most successful television around the world. And we're just gonna show a trailer of The Four Seasons to start. Who's excited to see The Four Seasons? Come on, give it up. And how fun that we get to do it as a group in a theater. We can laugh together. We get to see it with state-of-the-art technology, so we hope you join us after. So at SeriesFest, we don't like just to shine a spotlight on the people in front of the camera. I think it's always really insightful to get to hear from the people who are truly changing the industry, who are making all of this groundbreaking work, greenlighting this groundbreaking work. So I'm really excited for today's panel. First, I'm going to invite up our moderator, Elaine Lowe from The Ankler. Please join us. And please welcome the president of Universal Television, Erin Underhill.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having us. I'm Elaine Lowe. I work at The Ankler. I write a weekly newsletter called Series Business, which is about all things TV, about the development market, the buying and selling market, about all the changing dynamics of this industry. So it's really exciting to be able to talk to Erin today about both her career, her storied career at NBC Universal, as well as her take on the market today. So nice to chat with you, Erin.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. That was an amazing intro on SeriesFest. It's really been an honor to watch this festival grow. And like I said, this is my inaugural visit, and I hope to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I want to start out by you've been at NBC Universal for 25 years now. Is that right? You joined in 2000?
27, but who's counting?
27. Oh my goodness. 27 years. And you've helped to shepherd shows from ER and The West Wing to The Gilded Age and Hacks Today, overseeing more than 40 TV series in production. That is quite a feat. And we're going to talk about all of that. But first, I want to start out by learning a little bit more about how you got your start in your career. You know, as I understand it, you started out, I think, as an assistant at Paramount TV, and then you were at Universal TV, right?
Yeah. There's a short version and a long version. What does everyone want? I'll do the medium version. So I had no connections to the entertainment industry. I grew up in Northern California. I'm first generation American. My mom was from Ireland, my dad was from New Zealand, and literally knew no one. And I went to UCLA, got an English Lit major degree, and post-college, the thing I loved was travel. And during college, I actually worked at, which was the best job on campus, the UCLA travel agency. So I literally was a travel agent and worked 10 hours a week and traveled everywhere. So I felt like, I want to be a travel writer when I grow up. And that was a long shot once I started doing the actual hard looking into it. But I'm like, what can I do where I can combine story and travel? And Entertainment Tonight was a big thing on back then, and I would see them all over the globe, live from set, talking about the story and the characters and whatnot. And I thought, that could be interesting. But what ultimately got me in the door was my college roommate had an internship at Paramount in research. And this is back in the day when you would have to go in and physically download the ratings and photocopy them onto 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper and literally hand them out around the lot at Paramount. But that old-fashioned way of doing it is what literally got me my first job, because I had the FaceTime with people. I was out on the lot talking to people, meeting people, connecting with people. And I met Steve Stark, who was my first boss in the entertainment industry, and he had just come over to Paramount as the director of current series. And it was just the most incredible experience to start my career on a lot where I was riding a bike around. I'm UCLA campus to the Paramount lot. It was a very easy transition. And that's really how I kind of made that leap and got in the door as someone who, like I said, had zero connections right out of school.
And then tell us about your start over at Universal. And I understand you were a PA on an NBC sitcom called The Mommies. Is that correct?
So for those who know me, I'm very proud of my hometown, Petaluma, which is in Sonoma County. And the Mommies were from Petaluma, super random. And so, yes, I raised my hand when I was working for Steve and said, I'd like to get on-set production experience, because it's different when you're behind a desk versus literally the making of the show. So I did. I got a job. It was produced by Paramount Television. I was a PA, and I was on that show. Then I went to a drama, and it was a short-lived stint for me, because I think one of the important things about when you start off in the industry is, saying yes. Taking the opportunities that are presented to you, because you're going to learn that either you love it or you don't. And for me, I loved production, but I didn't love the instability of production. And I had bad luck. I was on shows that just kept getting canceled after 4 episodes. So I needed a little more stability. And I realized I could really take my skills of someone who loves story and storytelling. And I think being able to talk to people and connect with people, and I would be better served, on the studio or network side rather than the freelance side. So I worked at Paramount for a while, and then I got a job. The big growth for me was working for Anthony Yerkovich, who created Miami Vice. So I worked for him for about 3 years after Paramount, and that was like going to film school. He took me to every meeting at his agency. It was just me and, his agent at the time, Jim Wyatt, and myself and Paul Haas, who was like Jim Wyatt's assistant then, in a meeting. And it was baptism by fire. I learned so much. And then from there, after I sort of felt like, okay, I've got all the tools in my toolbox. It's time to really do something where I feel like I could be for the next decade. That's when I made the leap over to at the time it was NBC Studios.
And you've worked both on the network side and the studio side, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But tell us about the ER and the West Wing years.
Okay, so this is crazy. I was at NBC Studios, and then Garth Ann Sear, back in the day, who was running NBC, resurrected the Associates program, which was this amazing program where you're basically a junior executive in training. And lots of people applied, and I was very lucky and grateful and worked hard to get that opportunity to become an associate. And after 6 or 8 months as an associate, a job in current programming became available, and I threw my hat in the ring and I got it. So my first real executive job, I covered The West Wing, ER, and Titans. And so
that is an insane era.
It's an insane era. So the people I was, quote, giving notes to were Aaron Sorkin, Aaron Spelling, and John Wells. And it was my first, solo gig as an executive. So again, baptism by fire, and just say yes, just do it, and you cut your teeth and figure it out. But it was, it really, I have to say, I learned so much, especially from John Wells, about how to make a show and all the facets that go into it, and the way he would run the writers' room, and the nurturing of the writers, and the covering of each season. A writer would be like, okay, they're in charge of the cast. The next season they're in charge of post. The next season they were in charge of the network, like getting the notes from the network. And so they saw like the 360 view of what it takes to be a showrunner and make a show. And that approach has still really stayed with me, and it's taught me like what I think is important to look for in showrunners.
How many writers were in those rooms at the time?
That's a good question. I would venture to say 8 to 10. Okay. And this is, they were doing, we would always, 22.
It seems like a low number, no? Or is that?
Yeah, I mean, my memory is not the greatest, but I'm going to guess around 8 to 10. What was also remarkable was we would shoot 22 episodes a season, but NBC would always tack on 2 more. So they would shoot through like basically almost the end of April, and they'd write and shoot episodes 1 and 2 for the following season at the end of that season. So, I've done it all. So that's why, like, when it's like, oh God, 6 episodes, I don't know. We did 24 of a 1 hour in 1 year. So it's like, it can be done.
What's it like giving notes to Aaron Sorkin?
I will say candidly, we rarely gave notes directly to Aaron. We really gave notes to Andrew Stern, who was running John Wells Productions at the time. But I will say there were a few times that we spoke to him. I remember my colleague, Julia Gunn, at the time, there was like a numerical error. Like someone had sent, in his script, he said like, oh, there was 32 boxes delivered to the White House, and it wasn't consistent throughout the script, and she flagged it, and he changed it, and then he sent her a dozen roses. Oh, yeah. Wow. So he was actually pretty great, the interactions that we had with him.
And tell me, what came after that period of time?
In my career? So from there, I really felt like I had learned so much as a current executive, and I had started off as an associate of drama development. So I really wanted to go back to the creating. I think a good current executive is a development executive at heart as well. But for me, I wanted to get back to like the creation and that sort of like, I love hearing pitches. I love the shaping and the building of something. And so from there, I raised my hand. At the time, it was Kevin Riley running NBC. And I went over into drama development at NBC. So I was there for a couple years, and that was a fantastic experience.
How has drama development changed from that period of time to now?
Well, it's changed a lot. it's changed a lot. I mean, IP is just huge now, and I think I like to try to still take a balanced approach to development, because as I say, like, IP is up, like this, it's up here. It's the creative genius and brain of the writer. But at the same time, I'm I live in the real world, and I know that IP and packaging is very meaningful. And so I think there's more of that today than there was back when I was coming up as an executive in the business. I mean, there was always books and whatnot, but I think it's really proliferated in that regard.
What about the volume of pitches that you would see back then versus now?
Yeah, there were a lot of pitches, guys. Oh, man. Yeah, you would come into the office and you'd often start pitches at 9 a.m. and literally you'd have 4 pitches in a row. You'd have your lunch, and then you'd have another 3 or 4 pitches, and
that'd be your day.
Yeah, I mean, I think we would hear. We would track this. I mean, we heard several hundred pitches in a season, and that was a condensed period of time when it was the broadcast cycle only. So you'd start hearing pitches usually right around the 4th of like after the 4th of July. Drama was a little bit earlier than comedy. Comedy went a little later. But in drama, you'd start hearing pitches in July, and then you'd sell maybe I remember there was a project we sold on Halloween, and it was actually the first, I can't remember the name of it, but it was the first drama to get picked up in December. So they sold it on Halloween, and it got picked up in December. So that was incredibly fast, but those were the months that you were just, caffeine and just trying to keep it together, because when a writer comes in, they've worked really hard on that pitch, and you want to give them your full attention. And sometimes it was hard at 5 o'clock, on a Thursday when you've been hearing pitches all week long. So it is definitely, the volume has changed.
Yeah. Well, what does the volume look like these days?
Well, the volume now is, there's not as many pitches.
Well, we're on a year-round development cycle.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's no longer confined to those specific months. So we're still quite busy. We're really busy. We have a really robust slate on both the comedy and the drama development side at UTV. And that's the thing. I mean, we used to joke like, oh, summer's a great time to take your vacation. It's like, no, there's no good time to take a vacation anymore because the cycle is year round. And even broadcast, I mean, especially after COVID and then obviously the writer's strike, it hasn't been consistent for a while. And I'm hoping we get into a little bit more of a groove. I feel like we have, we're making 3 comedy pilots right now, which is great because it sort of feels like the olden days of pilots in the spring. But it has been a little upside down for a while now.
Yeah, I mean, my sense of things is after the industry-wide pullback, after both the writers and actors strikes, that people kind of really expected things to pick up more quickly than they did last year, and there was maybe some misplaced optimism in just how quickly things would get back into production and development. But this year, it feels like things are moving. I mean, what's your sense of that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think, I know a lot of people said, oh, it's a retraction. I think it was more of a correction that needed to happen. I mean, as anyone
coming out of peak TV,
yeah,
600 scripted shows on the air in 21, 22.
Right. I mean, there's still only 24 hours in the day the last time I checked. So it's hard. It's hard to keep up with it all. So I think I do think the market has picked up. We are definitely, when we call around, everyone wants to hear our pitches, which is great. Selling is I won't say it's harder, but I think we know for the most part the right ingredients. It doesn't necessarily guarantee a sale everywhere, but as I say to my team all the time, you just need one buyer who really gets it here and here, as I say, because you just need one champion for something to go the distance. And I know I've talked about this before publicly, and this was before I became the head of the studio, but when Hacks was pitched, Max was the one place that raised their hand, and look at Hacks now. So I think that hopefully gives hope to everybody that really and truly you don't have to sell a pitch it's great when you get multiple bidders and you get to have a bidding war, but to be successful, you still just need that one person who really is passionate and sees what you see in the vision of it.
I mean, and Hacks is fascinating, right? Because I remember you had said in an interview last year after their big Emmy win that it was gratifying and it was a real career highlight, and that this, like you mentioned, was a show that every other buyer had passed on. Like, tell us a little bit more about the origin of Hacks and the process of shopping that around.
Yeah, and again, I was in the head of drama development seat when that show was pitched and sold, but Jim Donnelly has regaled me with the stories, and it really was, it was obviously an amazing trio of writers with JPL, as we call them, Jen, Paul, and Lucia, and then Mike Schur and Morgan Sackett executive producing. And it was always, I think, really unique and distinct. And they had a strong point of view. And I think that blend of obviously hard, funny, but also real, like, emotion that
existential moments in that show.
Yes, exactly right. And I think there was something about that mixture of tones that really spoke to Susanna at Max. And I think once they start, it's like I say to my team too, you have to build it piece by piece, like layer, brick by brick. And if we're doing our jobs well, each brick is adding value in a positive way. And between the casting of Hannah and who was a total find, and obviously Jean, who's, besides Ted Danson, we call her also America's national treasure. It just kept getting elevated, and the execution was, they stuck the landing on the execution, and we're here today because of the dedication and passion and creativity of that team. And again, it's just such a great story and one we love to tell, because I think it really does epitomize, like, when you believe in something, you just go, swing for the fences, even though it might on paper not be like, oh, it's, a washed up comedian in her late 60s, like, wait, what? But, believe, if you feel it, believe it.
And then going back to your career for a moment, as somebody who's worked both on the network side and the studio side, how do you feel like that's shaped your worldview on things?
I actually think it's helped me tremendously. I talk about this with Lisa Katz, my partner at NBC and Peacock, because she used to be at 20th. So, and I was at the network. And so I can speak her language and she can speak my language. And I understand the challenges that the networks are under. And so I think I'm able to then to hopefully convey to our partners, our creative partners, our writers and producers, like a little more understanding, because I think a lot of it is when they have just a small little piece of the picture, it may come off as a certain, like, oh, they're blowing us off. It's like, no, this is the why, and trying to explain more the strategy and the thought process and like what's behind it, which I really do understand, having been at a network. And so that has served me, and I like to think that I've been able to sprinkle some of that knowledge and insight to my partners as well.
Is there anything that you wish that folks who have only ever been on the network side understood better about the studio side and vice versa?
Well, I think, production is basically a problems. There's just always that's just they go hand in hand, and that's life. It's not like anything. It's just the weather can cause a
series of logistics.
Yeah, it's a logistics. It's no one's. It's not like any one person is manually creating the problem. It's sometimes there's problems that just happen that no one has control. Like an actor gets sick and they can't come to work, and then you have to shuffle your days. I actually was dealing with that before I got here, looking at how we're shuffling a big day today around that we were supposed to shoot. So things happen, and you have to be nimble, and you have to be able to adapt. And I think for sometimes networks, again, you have to really explain and walk them through it. But if they haven't been in the seat of a studio executive, on the phone with a production executive, on the phone with the line producer, understanding the intricacies and how hard everyone is working to right the ship and keep production up and moving, it's like, well, we got a delivery. What's going to happen? We're going to miss the delivery. It's like, we know that. We're working real hard not to miss the delivery. We get it. And just having a little bit more understanding and empathy, But I think, again, that's where I think being a good communicator as a studio executive and walking them through the why is important.
And you also stepped into the role as president of Universal TV at a really interesting time. I mean, it was, what was it, November of 2020? It was the fall of 2020.
Yep.
Real rough time for the industry. I mean, that was a period of time when most production was still largely shut down, right? I mean, was anything in production then?
There were things in production, and I was just reflecting on this I was with some of my high school friends, and we were sort of reflecting on the 5-year anniversary of COVID and the shutdown, and looking back, I mean, it's pretty miraculous. I mean, I give a lot of credit to Jerry DeCanio, our head of production at Universal Television. He was, I think, at the forefront of safety and talking to the various government, local and national officials in conjunction with the team of doctors that we had to get production up and running and keep people safe and make people feel comfortable. But it's all a bit of a blur, and I look back and I'm like, wow, like I was brand new to the job, and I had to get on the phone sometimes with people and try to reassure them that they were going to be safe. And at the end of the day, there's no 100% guarantee, but as we would talk about, like, the sets were as safe as they could be. I mean, you had a test to walk onto set.
There were sort of like circles of of protection, I feel like, right? Of like whether you were zone A
Zone
or
A,
B.
Zone B, people had to wear masks or the shields. I mean, there was so much that, if you went to the grocery store, which we all had to do from time to time, there wasn't as much safety, even though people were wearing masks. I mean, there was such vigilance around that, but it was unlike anything I've ever experienced, and I hope I never have to again.
And out of curiosity, I remember at the time, I think the figure out there was like all the COVID measures added like 30% to budgets. Like, how much of that has remained, or are we sort of at like pre-COVID levels in terms of budgets for productions in that sense?
We thankfully are at pre-COVID levels. It's not factored into our budgets any longer. It trickled for a while, but it is now completely, it's no longer a line item in the budget, which I'm so happy to say.
And you've spent so much of your career in drama development, and now with both comedy and drama under your wing. Tell me a little bit about the comedy market, because what's so interesting is when I talk to agents and producers, like, comedy has just been such a challenged space for a number of years now. But Universal is producing so many comedies. I mean, there's St. Denis Medical, Happy's Place, Man on the Inside, Loot, Hacks. I mean, the list goes on.
4 seasons.
4 seasons, obviously. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about how you're viewing the comedy market these days.
Well, I also just want to say I am thrilled that I get to do comedy. When I started at NBC Studios back in the day, I was on set for the taping of the pilot of the original Will and Grace. So that was also a career highlight. And I remember I was an assistant to the executive at NBC Studios that covered the show in season 1, and I remember when you tape a comedy, they pitch jokes live, and there was an ice cream. I'm like, how about Rocky Road? Because it's relationship challenges, and Max Munchnick liked it, and he took it, and I was like, oh my god, my first so I like to think I have some comedy roots in me, even though I spent most of my years in drama. But I am so proud and impressed with my comedy team. They have worked so hard and have really, I think, knocked it out of the park. And I think it's really, you look at our talent and the roster of writers and creators at Universal Television, and it is hands down the best in the business. When I was on the drama side, I was always envious of the comedy roster. I'm like, oh, they have the best people. And we really do. We have, just singular voices who, I think what I also love about them is that everyone, there's no ego. Like, they come, they roll up their sleeves, and they really are in it to win it with us. And I think that collaboration and that partnership and that trust is part of the success. And when I look at the comedy legacy of Universal Television, obviously it was must-see TV on NBC, and the Will and Grace and The Office and Parks and Rec, and I am so proud too to know that as the studio has evolved, we were also, I think, there first at Netflix with our comedy, really helping to build that Netflix brand, with Kimmy Schmidt and Master of None and Never Have I Ever, and now with 4 Seasons and A Man on the Inside. So I really, in a challenged landscape, I give complete credit to my team and praise to my partners, my creative partners and writers that we have deals with, for just, like I said, bringing their A game, even in a challenged market, and getting not just hits on the board, but like we won, as you mentioned, the Hacks Emmy for Best Comedy, something we hadn't won since 30 Rock, back, I think it was 2012 or thereabouts. So, people, I think, need to laugh right now. And it's definitely, I think, good medicine. And I think when you look at just our brand of comedy too, what I love is that we've found success with multicams on NBC, as you mentioned, like with Lopez and with Reba.
Yeah,
but also
multicams are back.
They are, yeah, and they're so much fun to go to the tapings of multicams and being on set, and just being down there on the floor. It's it feels like the aughts again. It's great, but also, like I said, we've got the multicams in broadcast, but we also have our streaming. Plays in the comedy space, and then St. Denis Medical has been such a joy, and I think we've got our first season under our belt, and we've started writing season 2, and the material, dare I say, it's even better. It's like you're getting to know the characters, so things are resonating even more deeply, and so I think the future is bright for comedy.
And from the producers of Superstore, which I loved. And it just, it feels like broadcast is back, both when you look at procedurals on the drama side and sitcoms on the comedy side. I keep hearing that people still want comfort food. Do you feel like that's still the appetite right now?
I do. I think, I was talking to our head of research, and I think it's interesting, more than like, I want to watch a comedy or I want to watch a drama. People want to watch things to feel a certain way, like to have a mood, And I do think that the comfort. I mean, I know for me personally, candidly, like I come home at night and there are times where I'm like, I just like White Lotus was like kind of comfort food for me, because I could just have it wash over me, but I could still, clean out my purse and like why, it wasn't like I had to like lean in and like really closely track everything that was happening. But I like those shows too that I have to lean in and closely track everything that's happening. But I think people find comfort in different ways. So I think first and foremost, we want to deliver shows that entertain, and whether the entertaining aspect of a show is that it scares you, or that it makes you cry, or that it makes you laugh, or that it makes you want to like pick up the phone and call your best girlfriend. Like we want to create shows that make people feel something deeply, and I think that is comforting.
And going back to your career for a moment, you're a unicorn. 27 years at one company, and especially with given how challenged this environment is, sometimes there's a bit of a revolving door with executives. Yeah. What do you attribute to your longevity?
I have my parents were very simple people, and my mom talked a lot about the golden rule and just doing the right thing and treating people the way you want to be treated. I think that's been part of my success. It doesn't matter if you're, A-list a Hollywood producer, or the person who comes in, the lovely gentleman who comes in and cleans my office when I'm sometimes there at night when he arrives. You treat everyone the same, and I think that has been sort of my North Star. And I think also being very collaborative, being a good listener, leading, whether even when I wasn't the head of the studio, but leading, I think, with empathy. And at the same time, being competitive. I definitely have a competitive edge to me. I was
Good
a competitive
balance.
swimmer, so that trickles in for sure. But I think more than anything else, it's been my relationships that I've built over time and the trust I've earned with the people I work with and I work for.
And they say Hollywood is a relationships business, and it feels like, at least anecdotally when I think about it, there are so many NBCU alum all over town, right? Like at Netflix and at Amazon. I mean, tell me a little bit about how those relationships play into what you do, seeing all these familiar faces.
I love it because I feel like, I can call Vernon Sanders, or I can call, Tracy Pacosta or Bella Bajaria at Netflix, because I worked with these people. So that is what I do love about Hollywood or entertainment, is that it sort of feels like a big college campus that we're working on, in the sense that maybe you have to go across campus, but you're going to see some of the people on the north side of campus.
I had a class with that person last year.
Yeah, exactly. And so it really, again, because it's relationships and it's trust. So I feel really lucky, and I'm grateful that I have that foundational relationship with those people, because when they tell me something, or when I tell them something, they know that I'm being genuine and I'm not trying to work them. And I think being authentic and them knowing, like, I mean what I say, and I trust them when they tell me something, helps cut through it, because there's a lot of, no surprise, there's a lot of back and forth. BAs are doing their jobs, and agents are doing their jobs, but sometimes it's just like you want to cut through it and just like, is there a deal to be made here, or is there not? And I think having those long-standing relationships and friendships helps tremendously.
And then, speaking of deals and deal making, I hear a lot that deals are taking a little longer to close these days. I mean, like, what's your sense of how that timing has evolved over the years?
They are, and it's something we're working on. When I spoke to our BA team, deals have become really complex. Yeah. Streaming has made deal making and just all the intricacies of it so vastly different than the broadcast model, and hence why it takes longer. At the same time, we are very much working with the agencies. We actually did a tour of the agencies recently with our head of business affairs to talk about this and try to problem solve some of it. Some of it is so again, so dense and so intricate that it will take some time, but there's other areas that we can improve. And I think we're trying to focus on, okay, let's try to, the low hanging fruit, let's figure that out. And then we can see if we can tackle some of these bigger pieces. But I think for us and my team, what I'm trying to also do is just stay vigilant and partner as much as we can with our BA team. And I always say, like I'm happy to call somebody if it helps. And sometimes it does. It's like, we got to get this, again, we got to cut through it. We got to get this done. Like, you please, like, go talk to your BA. We have something right now with the streamer where we've been going back and forth. And I'm like, who do I need to call? Just to try to get this wrapped up.
And I mean, I've heard there are so many different parts of it that make deals take longer too, like, or just even in terms of production and things, like localization adds, more time to the back end of making a show for a streamer that's going to be broadcast globally. Like, are there any like major pain points, or is it a bunch of little things?
It's a bunch of little things. And I think also, look, the orders are shorter, so people are doing more, like especially actors, and I understand that, and writers for that matter, so they'll have 2 or 3 other projects, and you're trying to balance your schedule with the other schedule, because obviously people are, they need to make money, and I'm sympathetic to that. So that just, again, adds a complication, because it's a puzzle piece. Like, okay, well, if we wrap here, then you need at least like 2 or 3 weeks of buffer in case there's a reshoot, someone's sick and you push, there's so many moving parts that didn't exist when it was just broadcast. that schedule that was so tried and true when we all knew what it was.
Is there anything that you hope for creators and producers and writers today to sort of know about this current environment and where we are in 2025 as they're thinking about this creatively?
Yeah, I think, the advice I often give to anybody is just to remember this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And there will be some ups and downs for sure, but to continue at your craft, continue to persevere, write if you're a writer, direct if you're a director, act if you're an actor, like just keep honing your craft, and know that strong points of view, life experiences, your unique voice, it will shine through. It just may take a little bit, of time, but quality writing, quality acting, quality directing always gets noticed. So keep at it. And my drama team has been making the rounds at buyers. And just one little tidbit for writers out there, what we're hearing is pitches have gotten longer and they feel like they'd like things to be a little tighter, because they often know early on if they're leaning in or not. So just kind of getting to the heart of like, what is your show about? What are the themes? Who are your core characters? What are those dynamics? That's like, they're like, please, like, just, that's what we want to talk about. And the pitches could become so long that it all gets a little muddied. So that was like a general feedback we got from a lot of the buyers. Okay, that's really good to know. And now we're going to toss it out to the audience. If anybody else has questions here for Erin, as I'm sure you all do, there's a mic that's being passed around. But this is such valuable wisdom, so thank you for your time. Yeah, this
Erin.
is hot off the presses. I just got my drama team literally has been meeting with folks.
Like, what are we talking about minute-wise? Are we talking like less than half an hour? Like, what's the ideal pitch length?
I mean, I don't know what they said. I mean, I know we at UTV really try, like we feel like 20 to 25 minutes. Okay,
that's a sweet spot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Once you hit 30 or longer, it's long.
And like, you've probably already made a decision by that point.
Well, they're telling us that they have a strong sense at that point. Like within 10 minutes, they have a sense. Am I leaning in?
Okay. All right. Good to know.
So grab them early.
Hi. So I'm Catherine. I'm a writer. My question is actually about pitching. I'm just curious, how many layers do people go through kind of before they're pitching you? Do you greenlight everything, or do you have people under you that greenlight everything? It's more like, what's the structure there?
At Universal?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. So at the studio, we unfortunately do not have green light power. That will be once we sell a pitch and sell it to a platform or a network, the buyer will have the green light power. But for us at the studio, the process is my drama and my comedy team will hear pitches, and they'll either say like, yes, like let's do this and work on the pitch, or like here are some thoughts, or pass. But let's assume they say yes, let's work on it. They give notes to the writer, and the writer and or producers work on the notes, the creative notes, and then the team comes back in and pitches again, and we sort of do this back and forth dance until we feel like, okay, we're ready to go. Like, excellent, no notes, And oftentimes, it depends. I will come in, it depends on my schedule. Sometimes I come in to hear the very first pitch from a writer. Sometimes I don't come in until they're about to take it to market. So it varies, but that's sort of the overall flow of how things work. And we usually build a deck as well. That decks have become very popular and a great sales tool. I'm sure some of you, it's the bane of your existence.
Like a PowerPoint type deck.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I hear visuals are very big in the Zoom era of
They
pitching.
are. They really are. I have to say, they really, a good deck is a great sales tool. It really is. It really is. So it may not be what everyone wants to hear, but it's true.
All right, who's next?
Hi, my name is Arden. I am a collegiate fellow. I'm over at Community College of Aurora. So I'm actually interested in drama, and this is especially for you, Erin. Since you talked about comedies, how has pitching dramas been difficult or interesting since the inclusion of streaming and your guys' partnership with Max?
I'm sorry, what was the last part about Max?
Your guys' partnership with Max with pitching.
Max specifically?
Not specifically, but how like streaming has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, again, I think with the evolution of streaming, pitching has become more involved in the sense of like back in the day, like a broadcast pitch, you would pitch like fade in teaser. And it would be like a very visceral teaser. And then you would literally go through, sometimes you'd go through the characters next, like, let me tell you about my characters. And then you'd go through like, okay, act 1, fade in, and you would literally go act 1, act 2, you would pitch the entire pilot. And then you might be like, and here are 2 or 3 ideas for episodes, in season 1. Now in a drama, you should never pitch the full pilot. It's, again, I think a teaser is always like great because it sets the tone. It gives you a sense of the voice of the writer and the characters. And then it's like, what are the emotional arcs of the season and of the characters? So it's very like kind of 30,000 foot level and big picture as opposed to the minutia and the detail. And then, of course, depending on if you're pitching a show that's has a procedural bent, then yes, you should talk about like, here are some ideas for, stories that have a beginning, middle, and end. To answer the question is like, it's changed pretty significantly, and you have to think and plot and really think big picture a lot more now in terms of like, again, the whole season 1. Because I will say, like, not as much recently, but 3, 4, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it wasn't unusual for a streaming exec to say, how does the series end in your mind? Like, they would literally want to know, like, what is your vision? They wouldn't hold you to it per se, but they wanted to have a sense of like, where do you see this, because a lot of these streaming shows would, 3 seasons is sort of the sweet spot. It's like, where do we end on episode 24 if it was 8 episodes a season?
That's not a question you would get in like the early aughts, right?
Yeah.
Like where do you see this 6-season show ending?
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Georgette Pierre. So, twofold question for you, Erin. My collaborator and I, he works in scripted television as an episodic director, and I'm from the producer standpoint. And we are taking out an unscripted idea that taps into the IP of studios such as Universal, right? They're scripted TV shows. So the first macro question more so is, what do you all look for in collaborations when people are bringing ideas to potentially work with you all? And then 2, how much do you want collaborators to come with like these full-on pitches to kind of give room for feedback or that, like, are you all okay when people come with like fully fleshed out ideas and they're open to the feedback that you all give? So those are my 2 questions for you.
Okay. Well, I think I'll start with the second one, and then you might have to remind me of the first one. Sorry. So I would say both, to be honest with you. Like we're game to jump in early when things are just still, nascent and taking shape. That personally, I actually kind of love that because I love being able to riff with writers and come up with ideas. But at the same time, I really appreciate when I hear a pitch and I'm like, oh, no notes. Should we set up the pitches like next week? Or it's like it's ready to go. So for us, we're very nimble and we're open to collaborating either way. But I do think sometimes a little earlier can be better because you don't want to feel like, oh, you really went over here and I'm going to bring you all the way back and you're going to have to do a lot of work. So it's like trying to find that balance of like, okay, you've got enough to have a great working conversation about it, but at the same time, it's not fully formed and you're like, okay, you're going to have to kind of throw a lot of that away and kind of start from scratch. Yeah.
And the other one was, what do you all look for in collaborations with people that you want to work with on an idea?
I think for us, it depends. If it's a writer, obviously, we would love to work with people who have a unique and distinct voice. Usually, we always try to read material ahead of time to get a sense of like what they've written, what types of, themes and whatnot that they liked exploring, if it syncs up with what we're looking to do or what we know a buyer may specifically want. Like if it's a world builder, like, okay, great, that's that person we know is a master at world building. Let's try to get them in the door here. Or they're great at, relationships. Like we would love to do like this like messy, juicy relationships show. Let's work with this writer. And then a director, it's the same thing. It's looking at their credits and the scope of their work and feeling like, okay, they're a visionary, and they're value add, because not, a lot of times, sometimes you can add directors before you take something out and it doesn't necessarily move the needle. So it's like trying to make sure you're leaning in with the people that are going to really make a difference with buyers. You bet. Oh, sorry. Someone way up there.
I'm Jake. I've written several of my own TV pilots, also written spec scripts for existing shows as well too, so I really love doing it, but would you still suggest Los Angeles as the best place to get your foot in the door, to actually be there where the studios are?
That's a good question. I think right now, the beauty, if there's been, there were some blessings that came from COVID, I feel like there's things you can do remotely. So rather than someone saying like, I'm going to pick up my life and move to LA and I don't have a job and I don't have, any contacts there, and I want to be an aspiring actor or aspiring writer, I feel like you're able to at least do your craft from where you live and still submit your material in festivals or other ways to get noticed. I don't know, if you have an agent already or not, but if you're game, I think it can't hurt to be in LA. But I think I look at like SeriesFest like this is incredible that it's here and you're in Colorado. And I do feel like there's resources and support outside of LA. So I think it's a pretty individual decision. But I think it's like maybe come and do a month. And I don't know what your opinion
There were
would be.
instances of people getting staffed. I remember during the pandemic remotely, I talked to somebody like in Atlanta or New York who were getting staffed on shows in LA where I don't think that was really precedented before, right?
Yeah, and candidly, we even did that with some of our pages, which I loved, because we were able to bring people in from other states and they didn't have to relocate to LA, which is, expensive. And so it gave opportunities to people. And I think that can still be the case for writers.
Hi, my name is Rosie Moan. You inspired me with this question because, we have a lot of aspiring filmmakers here and filmmakers presently, but new, right? So I love the idea that, like, if it's a good story, if it shines through, we want to hear it. But also, how much does that background or those credits kind of play into whether or not you're even in the room, right? If this is your first project and maybe you've done the circuit, is it a not even bother, right? Like how much of a chance do you take on maybe the more emerging versus the very seasoned sort of thing? So like how much does credits sort of play into your decision making?
Well, for us in a situation like, I always say like, no matter what, it comes like it's the writing on the page. So if I read something and I'm like, oh, this gripped me, this is staying with me, and I can't stop thinking about it, then basically it's about partnering that writer who hasn't run a show before with a seasoned showrunner, because that's the other thing buyers are really looking for right now is seasoned showrunners. They want to know that they're putting this, millions and millions and millions of dollars that they're handing over into good hands and safe hands. And so I still go back to the writing though. Like if something is phenomenal, then I'm going to gobble that script up and I'm going to find, because we're so lucky with our roster of talent that we have deals with. There's lots of writers on our UTV roster who love mentoring and want to mentor new voices. And so that's how I would put that package together.
All right, I think that microphone is still coming around, right?
He was trying to get my attention over here earlier. Where were we pointing?
I'd just like to get your opinion on actually like independent pilots. So I'm thinking about the show we watched last night, right? I think it was at AMC for a while. It took many years. Ultimately, they produced it in Australia. I think they've sold a few territories. As far as I know, they haven't sold it in the US. Do you have a department that actually looks at fully created, I mean, I think they've shot all the episodes, or is that really a no-go? Because it's like, unless you guys can really develop it and kind of put your stamp on it, you're not, it's a very risky proposition, right?
You mean like the indie TV model where everything's sort of like self-funded first?
Totally.
The Dubois way of doing it.
And I'm just wondering if that's, if you guys are even looking at stuff like that. Like, will you look at Sunny Nights at some point when they come here? Or
I mean, the Duplass thing is fascinating, you know, and I think it's. I love that we're looking. I love that we're considering new ways of doing things. I think we have to iterate and we have to be nimble and have to think outside the box. All those buzzwords, but I think it's true. Like we're doing some on the deal making side as well, trying to find new ways to make deals. But in terms of that specifically, I feel like that's going to be something that's going to go more to a buyer directly versus a studio coming on board, because it's already been shot. I mean, our expertise is like the making of the show, you know, and the nurturing of the story and then the actual physical production of it. That's where, you know, that's what we do at Universal. So that would go to like a Peacock or a Netflix or as a I think a buyer directly to acquire that.
All right, I believe that was our last question. Thank you all so much for coming. Please give it up for Erin.
Thank you.
Really
guys.
wonderful
You've got a great
insights.
audience. Thank you.